Okay, the underbody panels are off the vehicle in two halves. We've got one there, held on here with self-tapping 8mm headed bolts. That gives me access to the subframe bolt there, and there is another one there and another one at the back. I'm going to try just moving this one down, see if it can give me just enough clearance to get this sump out. 16mm head, using an impact gun on it. Right, it's given a bit of movement. It is a positive direction. With an 18mm head further back, right in the middle of the subframe. I think we're going to have to just release that one. Hopefully it's just going to drop down just enough. For me to clear this with the sump. I'm going to set the compressor charge up, so I'll end it there for a second. Okay, so I've loosened the subframe bolts. I've already tried putting a bar in here, and it does bring the subframe down. Need to move it across. Hopefully I can just get it out there. Just catching on the gearbox side. I'm going to wrestle with this. Just going to take a breather for a second. I'm back in a second. T30 torque screws, one there, two more. Take that off, and there's two more T30s which hold the strainer in place. So I shall attempt to take those off now. Okay, let's crack on with the job. Just bear with me guys, 1 second, just put some fresh gloves on because the last ones are pretty short. I always think it's important to keep your hands clean. I mean, my hands as clean as I can keep them. No excuse, just because you're a mechanic doesn't mean you can have dirty hands. I mean, it's not healthy, it doesn't look nice, it's bad for you. So just use gloves whenever you can. Right, these normally come out no issue because they've had oil on them, they don't get corrosion or anything like that. .30 torques on my small 3/8 gun. Plate comes out. There's a sump pickup in there. Pretty goopy in there, even though I'd change my oil every 4,000 miles or so. Held in with an O-ring just here, which you need to replace every time you take them apart. Even if it's only been run for a few miles, you must replace that O-ring, otherwise you will have no oil pressure when you go to start the engine. Right, okay, there's the issue. That's exactly what the issue is. Clean this off. See that gauze, very fine gauze, all gunked up. It's not the worst. Sometimes you see them where they're completely flush, and you can pull out a cone-shaped piece of like carbon. But this has had some work on it in the past, this engine, because there's bits of silicon and all sorts of stuff in there. So not good really. Not the worst, but that's what the issue was. If I would have carried on driving with this, I would have lost oil pressure, it would have picked up on a bearing because it wouldn't have been lubricated, and it would have damaged one of the bearings on either the mains or one of the big ends on the con rods. So that's what that is. There's an O-ring, just a plain rubber O-ring, but it's a specific Saab sized O-ring. You can't just stick any old O-ring in. It's got to be the correct fitment. It's gone flat on the edges. Put that back in, there'll be no oil pressure because it's been disturbed. So put a new one of those in. Clean all that sump out in there. Get all the gunk out. There's all sorts of bits in there. Probably never been done as long as the car's been around. Right. I'll pick it up in a minute. We'll have a quick look at the bottom end while we're here. So let's have a look what we have. That's number 4 con rod, number 3, 2 and 1. 5 bearing crankshaft. From 2001 onwards, the B205 had these single piece con rods. So they cast and then they split and then they put back together, so they're like fingerprint fit. I can't remember the name of it. Basically they're made and then they split and then they go back together again, so the perfect fitment and you don't get any balancing issues and stuff like that. So the later ones use bolts like this, and the earlier Saabs, B202s, B204s and the early B205s use studs with nuts on them, which is actually a better thing. They're tougher than the bolts, but there's nothing wrong with the bolts. They don't have any issues with them. I'll just check them while they're here, make sure there's no play in anything. I mean, if there is, there's big freaking issues, but you know, the engine was quiet, so I'm probably just going to leave everything alone, clean it up and put the sump back on when it's cleaned up. Right, back to this wretched sump job. So earlier in the video I said I found a split, and I didn't know if it's a casting mark or a split, but turns out it is a split. And it's like the only solution to this is getting another sump. Now luckily, because we're a Saab specialist, we're keeping the odd spare parts off the old cars. Right, and I found 2 sumps. There's one there and one there. Look a bit worse for wear because they've been outside, but they're complete and I'm pretty sure they don't have any splits or any issues with them. So I'm going to decide which one is the best and clean them up as best I can, and that's going to replace this broken one, because there's no point in getting that repaired or anything. It's just for the scrap now, unfortunately. So I'll crack on with cleaning that up. Right, so that's the new sump, cleaned up. I don't have an ultrasonic cleaner or anything like that, so it's basically a case of just sticking it in a bucket or a trug, flexible bucket. A load of washing out liquid, G101 and some degreaser and a scourer, and just scour off all the carbonised oil residue and then jet wash it off afterwards. See where the oil pickup is in the bottom there, the round bit, that's perfectly clean now. And the underside, so it's all nice and fresh looking. Some strainer, it looks like a crude modification, but basically all you do is enlarge the holes. That's all it needs, and that stops the any deposits getting clogged up in there. They'll pass through the oil pump, but it's not an issue. It doesn't really bother the oil pump at all because it goes through the filter anyway before it gets into the engine. So silicone grease, like use on rubber grease on the O-ring, new O-ring, and work it carefully into the oil pickup. Okay, that's that bit done. Make sure the holes line up. this case of just putting the screws back in. You don't use any thread lock on these. Just put them in and make sure they're tight enough. You've got to be careful with them because they're going into aluminium, so don't over tighten them. Just do these with a screwdriver, I think. Tight enough, that's there. Now the baffle plate, which is clean, it doesn't look clean but it is. Any residue and stuff on that's all taken care of. Four screws hold this one in. That's sort of ready for sealing to go on now. There's no gasket on these sumps, it's just a bead of silicone that goes around the edge and it just mates up to the bottom of the block. So I'm using BGA silicone sealing compound, which I'll put a picture of on the video. This actually comes with the replacement sump kits. I've used it many times. It dries quite hard but flexible, so it's not stretchy like a lot of cheaper silicons. So that's the next stage. So I'll be doing that in a couple of minutes. Okay, I've just released the subframe at the back. The bolt that goes through the suspension arm and holds it to the bodywork. Give you a little bit more depth. Got it. Wow, that went with a bang. Oh my god. Right. I have to check there's still enough silicone on there. I think there should be. Yeah, that looks alright. Check that side. Right, it appeared to be on there. So I've got some bolts in my pocket. I'll just push it up there. It's place. Start winding some bolts in. Socket extension bar, 13mm socket. Obviously put them all in place before you tighten them up permanently. If you tighten one or two up and you've got a couple of holes that haven't received the bolts yet, then they may not line up properly, so it's always good to get them all in and then finish them off. Put a universal joint on the last two here. So I'm going to do them by hand. I'm going to do all these by hand to finish them off because using a power tool on it would be just stupid. All it takes is a little bit too much torque and it'll just split the casing. So I'll just finish that up with a ratchet and join you in a couple of minutes. Right, it's all back together. Exhaust back on, under trays back on, new oil in it, oil and filter. Proper genuine Saab filter. I've done a repair on a breather pipe at the back of the engine that goes down to the sump, and it's time to fire it up. What we're looking for is oil pressure. So there's the oil lights. Okay, that goes out, so we've got oil pressure. The whining noise is gone, because the sump is now clean and the pickup is now modified, so it's drawing oil up into the oil pump with ease. It's not struggling to do it anymore. So over the next few days just need to keep an eye out for any leaks I may have. Hopefully none. But that concludes this video. Thank you all for watching. Like and subscribe. There'll be plenty more to come.